Après, pour c'est faut quand même juste mettre l'enregistrement. Comment ça sera accessible? Oui, voilà.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. If not, please wave your hands. So it's a great pleasure to start this year with a talk by Anne Moreau for the first seminar DAOBU of the year. Only the second seminar DAOBU of the academic year, unfortunately. And so it's also, we're not very used to using hybrid seminar. We hope everything will go smoothly. So Anne has kindly agreed to give a talk about nilpotent-Slodowitz slices and W algebras. The talk will last 115 minutes, so there's plenty of time for questions. If you need to ask a question, please unmute yourself and ask it. Unfortunately, I won't be able, or you could also write it through the chat, which I will monitor. And so here we go. So thank you very much again, and please, Anne, go ahead. So you have to sit close to the microphone, probably.
Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I would like to especially thank the people who came here. So in this talk, I would like to explain how to use geometry of nilpotent-Slodowitz slices to study some properties on W algebras, which are certain vertex operator algebras. And more generally, I would like to explain how to extract the so-called associative variety attached to any vertex operator algebras. And this is a joint work still in preparation with Tomoyuki Arakawa and Jeslo van Eekeren. Comment je fais?
Il faut sortir.
Ok.
Je vais juste le mettre comme ça, les gens vont le voir.
D'accord. Alors, comme ça, ok. Okay, so let me first briefly say what is a vertex operator algebra. So vertex operator algebra is a vector space, complex vector space, V, equipped with a certain linear map from V to the vector space of Laurent polynomial series with coefficient on V. And this map attached to any A in V, a certain field that I denote AZ, like this. So here in my notation, AN is an endomorphism of N. And of course, this map must satisfy certain properties. And the most important ones are, first of all, you can recover your vector by applying the field, by taking the limit at 0 and applying the field to the vacuum vector. So the vacuum vector goes together with the data of your vertex algebras. It is a distinguished vector. And so this means that this map is injective. And this property is called the state field correspondence. And another important property is the locality axiom, which says that two any fields commute up to a power of, to some power of z minus w. So this equality for n big enough. This equality has to be understood in the vector space of Laurent series in two variables, z and w, with coefficient on v. All right? And this locality property is equivalent to the so-called OPE, operator product expansion. This is a physics notation. It is a slight abuse of notation, but what is important is that this data is enough to give you the bracket AZBW, or equivalently, the bracket between any two endomorphism AN BM. All right? So in fact, this sum is finite, and the number of terms is determined by the n which appears just before. Okay, so this is roughly the definition of a vertex algebra. And if you want a vertex operator algebras, you need slightly more properties that I am not going to give in details. But one thing is that V is assumed to be Z-graded, and each component is finite dimensional, and also is below bounded in this grading. All right, and all vertex algebra we will encounter will be vertex operator algebra. All right, so this is a algebraic structure, quite complicated algebraic structure. And now what is interesting is that to any such VOA, you can attach in a canonical way a geometric object. So this is the next thing I want to explain. So more precisely, there is a contravariant functor from the category of VOA to the category of affine Poisson varieties. And to any V, you can attach a Poisson variety, which is I denote XV. And this is what we call the associated variety of V. So let me explain how it is defined. Is it okay so far? Okay, so this is what we call the associated variety. So by definition, it is a maximal spectrum of Poisson algebra. So this is a reduced scheme associated to some RV, and RV is called the ZOO-C2 algebra, but this is not so important. What is important is how is defined RV. So let me explain the definition. So first of all, by the state field correspondence, we can write V like this. It is a vector space generated by some derivative of some fields. So the notation looks a bit complicated, but let me explain. First of all, it is assumed that V is finitely generated in the sense that you need only finitely many fields to describe your vertex algebra. And then this dot notation just means normally ordered product. It's just a technical notation because you cannot multiply to any field. It's just not defined. So, but you don't, if you know the notation, it's good, otherwise you don't really care. So anyway, it is generated by such field. And now we consider the subspace generated by all these elements where the sum ni, etc. plus nr is greater than 1. Okay, so this is a subspace of V. And another way to describe in terms of Fourier mode is just a vector space generated by this kind of vector. So I recall that the notation A index n is just an endomorphism of V. So this explains the notation C2V. All right, and now what is interesting is that this quotient, so RV is by definition the quotient of V by C2V. And what is interesting is that this quotient has naturally a Poisson algebra structure. And I can describe the Poisson algebra structure. So first of all, the unit is just the image of the vacuum in this quotient. I denote by overline the image in the quotient. The associative commutative product is given by the normally ordered product. So this means you just take A minus 1B and you take the image in the quotient. And the Poisson bracket is given by this A0B and you take the quotient, the image in the quotient. So if you prefer, you can also express the Poisson algebra structure in terms of fields. So maybe this is more explicit. You take the normally ordered product of two fields and then the image, or and for the Poisson bracket, you just take the residue at Z is equal to W. So anyway, you have a canonical structure of Poisson algebra on this quotient. And then by definition, the associated variety is just a corresponding reduced scheme. All right? And the philosophy is that the geometry of this object captures very important properties of the vertex algebra.
The notion of reduced scheme is not familiar.
Sorry. Okay, so this means that RV is the coordinate ring of your variety. Is it okay like this? Mm-hmm. But here, the definition, I start with a coordinate ring and then consider the variety. So
the variety is smooth or?
That's a very good question. Okay, so reduced scheme is not familiar, but for Pierre, I think it's okay. So first of all, it's also interesting to consider the non-reduced scheme associated, because in fact it's far from being reduced and it's not smooth in general. And in most examples, we will see it's singular. And this is precisely interesting because singularity says something about V. This is precisely what we are going to see. So precisely, the idea is, first of all, if it is of dimension 0, this gives you a strong condition of V. We will see that this is a least vertex algebra or C2 cofinite. If it is a Poisson variety, so if you have finitely many symplectic leaves, is also interesting, etc. This is the idea. But of course, you lose a lot of information by considering this variety, but still you have important properties. Okay, so I will give examples after, but first of all, I would like to give some motivations to study this tool coming from recent conjecture in physics about higher dimension conformal field theory. Okay, so recently, a group of physicists, so probably you know some of them, so Beam, Lemos, Liendo, Perlers, Rastelli, and Van Ries, introduced a remarkable map from the set of four-dimensional n is equal to 2 superconformal field theories to the set of two-dimensional Carroll conformal field theories. So that is to say, the set of VOA, vertex operators algebras. And roughly, if I well understand, it is obtained by reduction of dimension. And this map must satisfy some compatibility properties. And the idea is that you can describe physical invariant from the 4D superconformal theory in terms of mathematical invariant of your vertex algebra. So in particular, it is required that the Schuh index of your theory, which is a certain Q series attached to any four-dimensional superconformal theory, is equal to the normalized character of your VOA. So let me explain a little bit the notation. So the character here is a trace. Sorry, maybe I should say here what is Q, but here L0, you remember that in the definition of VOA, it is supposed to be graded, and it is graded by some semi-simple operator, which I called L0. It comes from Virasoro action, but anyway, this is a semi-simple element which gives you the grading. And then there is a shift, which is not so important. It is a technical shift, CV over 24. And here CV is a central charge associated with your vertex operator algebra. All right, and here Q is exponential 2i pi tau, and tau runs through the Poincaré half plan. All right, so you have this equality in the definition. And now I would like to make some comments on this map. So first of all, so far it is injective, which means that the corresponding vertex operator algebra is a good invariant.
This is only one of the conditions on this map.
I think it's only one amongst other conditions, but I'm not going to give the exhaustive required properties. This is interesting because from properties of normalized character, you recover some expected properties of the Schuh index. I will mention after. So it's injective so far, but however, it's far from being surjective. So in particular, okay, maybe I don't explain what is unitary, but just what I want to say is that there is a notion of central charge also for four-dimensional superconformal theories. And in the definition, or maybe as a consequence of the definition, I forgot, but you have a relation between the central charge of the two-dimensional, the VOA, and the central charge of your four-dimensional theory. And here it is assumed that this one is always positive for the physical part. So this means that the central charge of your VOA is never positive. So in particular, the vertex algebra is not unitary. So in particular, it's quite exotic. The vertex algebras you obtain are not the most well-known vertex algebras you encounter. So in particular, it's not surjective. So you have a quite exotic class of vertex algebras you see on the right-hand side. Okay, so now here I talked about the Schuh index, But there is another important invariant, which is more geometrical invariant attached to any four-dimensional superconformal theory, which is called the Hitch branch. And the Hitch branch is, don't know how to say because there is no mathematical definition in general, but it is a symplectic variety, possibly singular. And there is a conjecture by Beam and Rastelli, which says that for any four-dimensional theory, the Hitch branch is equal to the associated variety of the corresponding VOA. So this is very nice because this will give a mathematical definition of the Hitch branch.
This branch is Poisson, probably not symplectic.
It is also Poisson, but it is symplectic in the smooth part and even hyperkähler in the smooth part. So it's precisely what I'm going to mention after. It's much more than only Poisson. So first remark, I have to say that this conjecture has been proved in the special case of class F theory, which is a distinguished class of four-dimensional superconformal theory, for which the Hitch branch has been defined mathematically by Braverman, Finkelberg, and Nakajima. And then using this mathematical definition, Arakawa proved the conjecture. And the second remark is connected with what Boris says, that so far the Hitch branch is hyperkähler cone. So this means in the smooth parts, there is a hyperkähler structure, while the associated variety is only Poisson in general. So here again, you see that the previous map is not surjective. You have only certain vertex algebra which appear. And more precisely, it is expected by physicists that the Hitch branch is Poisson with only finitely many symplectic leaves. So typically, you have one symplectic leaf which is dense, and it is a closure of this with finitely many symplectic leaves, for those who are familiar with this notion.
Is XV always irreducible?
Yeah, you already
Please repeat the question.
sorry. So the question is whether XV is always irreducible. So that's a good question. So far, we don't have example where it's not irreducible. But again, motivated by physicists, we conjecture it is irreducible, not only in this context, but at least in the context of finitely many symplectic leaves, because it's also something expected by physicists, that the Hitch branch must be irreducible. But more generally, so one motivation is this, but there is also a more classical motivation. There is a definition that V is called quasi-Lie if the associated variety has finitely symplectic leaves. So roughly, it is expected that the VOA appearing in this 4D 2D duality are quasi-Lie. So the terminology comes from the fact that vertex algebra whose associated variety is just a point, so obviously it's quasi-Lie, is called Lie, or C2 cofinite. This is the same definition. I haven't written here, but I should mention that it is well known that Lie of C2 cofinite vertex algebras has very nice properties. So in particular, you have only finitely many V modules, and the normalized character of these modules satisfy modular invariant properties. So if you assume also rationality, the vector space generated by this character is modular invariant. So this is for Lie, this is well known.
Are there examples of quasi-Lie with only one symplectic leaf? So only
yes, for instance, if I write, nobody can see, right? No, but I just can say. So if you take the Carroll algebra of Carroll differential operators, the associated variety is a cotangent bundle, for instance, of G, of a group. The associated variety is a cotangent bundle of a smooth variety, and this is just one symplectic leaf. And by the way, this example appear in this context. So if you take a simple group. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every thing can. Okay. Okay, so Lie vertex algebra or C2 cofinite vertex algebra were for a long time the most studied vertex algebras. So as I say, it is well known they have good properties, but it is also known now that quasi-lists have similar properties. Cannot explain, it's more technical, but normalized characters also satisfy interesting properties for characters. Okay, so this is one of the motivation to study this class of vertex algebras, because again, this is exactly who the vertex algebra, which are expected to appear in this context. But of course, this class can be larger than the class of vertex algebras appearing. Okay, so now it's time to give examples. So I want to give examples and non-examples of quasi-list vertex algebras. So of course, I'm going to give examples which are interesting for this correspondence. Okay, so I consider the affine Kac-Moody algebra associated with a simple Lie algebra. So you can take, for example, G to be SLN. And then I consider the corresponding universal affine vertex algebra, which is by construction an induced module. So in my notation here, you take the enveloping algebra of G hat, and it is the representation induced by the subalgebra GT plus CK. And CK is a one-dimensional representation of this subalgebra on which GT acts trivially and K acts by scalar small k. So anyway, this is by construction representation on G hat, and it is well known that it has a vertex algebra structure. And here, this is a VOA, in fact, and it is generated by the field XV, where X is in G. And the embedding is, you just send X minus 1, XT minus 1. And the OPE, you can describe the OPE, and in fact here the OPE are exactly equivalent to the commutation relation in G hat. All right, and this vertex algebras is very important for the representation theory of Kac-Moody algebras. The reason is that you have a correspondence between GK module and smooth G hat module at level K. So this means smooth roughly is equivalent to the fact that XZ is a field. And level K means that the center element K acts by small k.
In physics, we call it Wessel-Witten model.
Okay. So, the construction is quite technical, but anyway, you have this vertex algebra associated with Kac-Moody algebra. And for this one, it is easy to compute RV that we encountered before, and so the associated variety. And here, it's just the dual of G. And the Poisson structure is given by the Constant-Kirillov-Sourillot-Poisson structure. Here, I like to identify with G using a non-degenerate invariant form. And so here, in particular, this one is not quasi-list, because here, the symplectic leaves as just a co-adjoint orbits, or adjoint orbit if you identify with G, and there are infinitely many of them. Okay, so this one is not quasi-list. So in general, if you want quasi-list, you need to consider simple vertex algebras.
It doesn't depend on K?
Sorry?
It doesn't depend.
Yeah, that's also an interesting remark. Here, the associated variety does not depend on K, but if you take simple quotient, it does. It will be the same with W algebras. So universal one, it will not depend. Okay, so now let's consider the simple quotient. So it's simple in the sense of vertex algebras. You have a notion of ideal and so on. So you can talk about simple vertex algebra, but it's also simple in the sense of G hat representation. So I can use the terminology without problem. And for this one, what we can say is just that the associated variety is a G invariant because it's Poisson, conical and closed subvariety of G star. But in general, it's very hard to compute this. The reason is that it's very hard to compute the maximal submodular of VKG. However, there are some particular values of K for which we can compute these associated varieties. So we will see many examples of quasi-list simple affine vertex algebras. Is it okay here? At least for those who knows a little bit the algebras. Okay, so let me now give example of values k where we can compute this one. So first of all, if LKG is integrable in the sense of representation, which is well known to be equivalent to the fact that k is a non-negative integer, then the associated variety is just 0. So in this case, it's least C2 cofinite. It's just 0, and in fact, the converse is also true. So to summarize, the simple affine vertex algebras is least if and only if k is a non-negative integer. But just a remark, this one does not appear in the 4D to D correspondence. The simplest one does not. So now let's consider the quasi-leaf. So the case where the associated variety of LKG has only finitely many symplectic leaves. So first of all, an easy remark, if you know a little bit simple the algebras, is that this one is quasi-leaf if and only if the associated varieties is contained in the nilpotent cone. So what is a nilpotent cone? Is a set of nilpotent elements of your Lie algebra. So for instance, for SLN, it's just a set of nilpotent matrices. And it is well known that this nilpotent cone has finitely many adjoint orbits. So one direction is clear and the other one is also easy to prove. Okay, so now we want example where the associated varieties is contained in the nilpotent cone. Is it okay? In fact, here I talk about integrable representation, but there is a larger class called admissible Girard representations. I'm not going to give the definitions because it's quite combinatorial and technical, but it was introduced by Katz and Wakimoto, and conjecturally it corresponds to those representations of Girard whose characters satisfy a certain modular invariance property. So this led us to define the admissible representation. So anyway, it's a larger class of representation, and I don't give the definition, but for the special case of the representation LKG, which is a certain irreducible highest weight representation of Girard, it is known that it is if and only if, you can take this as definition, K is this kind of rational numbers. So here HH is the dual Coxeter numbers, for SLN is just N. And PQ must be co-prime, and here RH is just the lassity of your Lie algebra. So for ADE, it's just 1. So you can forget the second case if you want, but for type ADE, it is required that P is greater than the dual Coxeter numbers. So anyway, you have an explicit description of admissible levels. And now it was conjectured by Fegin and Frenkel and proved by Arakawa that if LKG is admissible in the previous sense, then the associated variety is a closure of some nilpotent orbits. And this nilpotent orbit is entirely described by K, and in fact by Q. So what does that mean? So in this case, it is quasi-leaf, and it is precisely the situation I explained before. You have one symplectic leaf which is dense, which is exactly okay, and then you take the closure. So it is irreducible with finitely many symplectic leaves, and this is a typical situation of quasi-leaf, associated variety of quasi-leaf vertex algebra.
Is there some multiplicity here?
It is not reduced. It is your question?
Yes.
And in fact, even for integrable case, even if you take L1 of SL2, the very simplest case is not reduced.
And what is the multiplicity then?
Here I don't know, but here it's like 2 for the example I gave, and it's in fact it depends on the level K. Here it's more difficult to say the reduced, the non-reduced structure. But what is clear is not reduced. Okay, so this is a very interesting families of example, and Now I would like to give an example of quasi-simple vertex algebra.
You want to ask questions?
Ah, sorry. What I have to say?
Just ask if they have questions.
Do you have questions?
Yes, I have a question. What do you do when the orbit is not normal?
What do we do if it is not normal? We are not happy, but this can happen because, for instance, in G2, all nilpotent orbit closure appear as in this setting, so as associated varieties of simple admissible vertex algebras. But as you probably know, in G2, one of them is not normal. So it's not a problem for the irreducibility conjecture, but what we expect is that at least it is unibranch, so that for what I'm going to explain just after, it's good. It's not so bad. So it's not normal all the time, but not so bad. Is it okay?
Okay, I'll wait to see.
Okay, actually, G2 is the only examples of non-normal variety which appear.
Well, you have a simple non-normality in SO7, for example.
Yeah, but for E7, as far as I remember, it does not appear here.
SO7.
Not all nilpotent orbits appear in this context, only few ones.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So as far as, I'm not totally sure, but I think in E7, they do not appear when they are not normal.
I said SO7, sorry.
SO7, the same, the same. In classical cases, all nilpotent orbits which appear in this context are normal.
I see.
Yeah, we are lucky. But maybe it's not a question of luck, but yeah.
I was wondering if you could say something more about the modular invariant representations, maybe 1, 2 sentences.
Yeah, it's you can describe the character in terms of theta function.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is this kind of modular invariant properties you can.
So it's stronger than satisfying.
Yeah, it's stronger in this context, but it fits. In fact, it's slightly different than what I'm saying when we discussed before, because what I'm saying about solution of modular differential equation is about what we call ordinary representations, which is a certain class of representation of the module of V. And here I'm talking about representation in the category O, which is slightly different. But in both cases, you have this modular invariant property. All right, so now to finish with this category of examples, I would like to give examples which is not admissible and which is very, this I already explained. So and the last example I want to discuss in this context are very interesting for the 4D, 2D duality. So here I consider, I assume that G belongs to the Deligne exceptional series, which is this embedding series of simple algebra, series of embeddings, which includes all exceptional simple algebras. And I take for K this particular level. Cannot really explain now why I choose this level, but this is a certain rational number. And here we proved with Arakawa that the associated variety is a closure of the minimal nilpotent orbit of your Lie algebra. So minimal is a minimal non-zero nilpotent orbits, or in the sense the dimension is minimal. And so this is interesting because this level is equal to -2, -3, -4, -6 for the one in red. I don't know if you can see the color, but for D4, E6, E7, E8, this level is not admissible. So this is interesting because this gives you new examples. And in fact, so this gives new example. And in fact, it turns out that these examples, so precisely this Lie algebra with this particular level, are precisely the main examples used by Beam, Rastelli, and collaborators in the Hildebrand conjectures. In fact, the...
Is it E7,
Ah, sorry, I just copy past. Yeah, it's -3 E6, -4 E7, -4 E8. Sorry. And yeah, in fact, for this example, for some reason, they are able to compute the Hildebrand and observed that it was precisely the closure of the corresponding minimal nilpotent orbits. So our result with Arakawa proves the conjectures in this case. So this was the starting point of this conjecture. Okay.
This also appears in the elliptic singularity.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, the coefficient you see for the level 2, 3, 4, there is another typo. Here is correct. It's 6. Correspond also in this elliptic fibration to the cyclic group, the degree of the cyclic.
And does that appear in the physicist?
I think it's connected in the because this appears in the classes theory. So in fact, Arakawa's proof give a new proof of this fact. And as far as I understand, in the classes theory, it comes from F theory, which is connected with elliptic fibration. And so everything is connected with this. So it's quite a nice observation here. Okay, so now I would like to consider Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction. So I'm going to, now I go to W algebras. So here I consider a nilpotent element of G, and I denote by WKGF the corresponding W algebras, which is obtained by the quantized Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction. So which means that it is obtained by the Drinfeld-Sokolov functor associated with F applied to the previous universal affine vertex algebras. So I don't give a precise definition, but you can view this as a quantized Hamiltonian reduction. Here it is known by De Sole and Katz that the associated variety is what we call the Slodový slice associated with F, or more precisely, an SL2 triple. I forgot to introduce notation, but any nilpotent element is included in SL2 triple. So triple F, H, E, which generate an algebra isomorphic to SL2. And what is important is that this Slodový slice is transversal to the nilpotent orbit of F. All right? Sorry? Yeah. I have to explain many things. G is a centralizer of E in G. But what is important is that this is an affine space, which is transversal to the tangent space of F at, tangent space at F of the nilpotent orbit of F. All right? So here again, you observe that the associated variety does not depend on K for WP. Okay, so sorry, I forgot many notation, but I hope you have a feeling of what is this. And now here again, if you want interesting W algebras, you consider simple quotient. So unfortunately, we don't know exactly the associated variety of the simple quotient of WK, but we can compute, thanks to a result of Arakawa, the associated variety of the Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction applied to the simple affine vertex algebra. And here it just as variety the intersection of the associated variety of LKG. So we have seen that we can compute in some examples with this Slodový slice. And then in particular, if K is admissible, what you get is the intersection of a nilpotent orbit closure and the Slodový slice. Okay, and this is precisely what we call a nilpotent Slodový slice. So in this way, you get many examples of Lis and quasi-Lis W algebras because maybe I should say, but the Poisson structure on the Slodový slice is obtained by Hamiltonian reduction. So the symplectic leaves are just intersection of coadjuvant orbits and the Slodový slice. So as soon as LKG is quasi-Lis, here it's quasi-Lis. And another remark is that conjecturally, the simple quotient of the W algebra is isomorphic to this Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction applied to LKG. So in fact, this gives an expected result. And it was proved in many examples, including type SLN for admissible levels. Okay.
Sorry, this was the definition.
No, it's not a definition. WKGF is by definition the simple quotient of the universal W algebras. And this is just a Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction applied to the simple affine vertex algebra.
It's because the index K moved from top to down.
Yes, I use a similar notation that
okay, so
if it is sub index, it is simple, and up, it is universal. Yeah, it's confusing. But conjecturally, it is the same, provided that it is non-zero, of course. All right, so this is how nilpotent-Lodovic slices appear in this story. So I would like to make a short digression of nilpotent-Lodovic slices because, as I explained, I want to use singularities of this object. So I just repeat what is the definition, but the general definition is that if you start with a nilpotent orbit of G, the intersection of this nilpotent orbit closure with a nilpotent-Lodovic slice, where you take F in the closure, it's called a nilpotent-Lodovic slice. And in fact, originally they are studied because it is transversal to the nilpotent orbit closure. So the local geometry of your nilpotent orbit closure is encoded in this nilpotent-Lodovic slice. So if you want to understand singularities of the nilpotent orbit closure, it's good to understand this. And this is close to the question about normality. Originally, it was studied precisely to study normality of nilpotent orbit closures.
Can you remind what is a normal orbit?
Which one?
Normal nilpotent orbit. What is a normal?
It's okay. There is a notion of normal algebraic variety, and for nilpotent orbit closures, they are not always normals, and so this is it's because someone asked me the question about this. Okay, so in fact, because of this, it was mainly studied in the case where the F is in minimal generation. This means that F is maximal in the complement of the orbit inside the closure, so which corresponds exactly to the singular locus. So maybe I don't talk too much about singularities. Just want to say that there are two. The best known case is when O is a regular nilpotent orbit. So it is well known that there is a maximal nilpotent orbit in the nilpotent cone, which is dense. And this is what we call the regular nilpotent orbit. So for SLN, it just, you take the full Jordan block and you take the orbit of this, the conjugation class of this. And for F, you take the subregular. So there is also another nilpotent orbit just below. And then it is well known that in this case, the nilpotent-Lodovic slice is a simple surface singularities whose type is the same as the type of G if G is simply laced. Okay, so this is the best known example of nilpotent-Lodovic slice. And at the extreme opposite, if you take the minimal nilpotent orbit and F0, then your nilpotent-Lodovic slice is just a closure of the minimal nilpotent orbit. And this is also interesting for symplectic singularity.
So for physicists, simple surface singularity means A space.
It means?
It's also called A space.
Ah, okay, okay, I didn't know. Okay, so probably you encounter these two extreme opposite examples. And between, it was studied again only in the case of minimal degeneration by Kraft and Procedji in the classical types, and recently by Fu, Juteau, Levy, and Sommers for the exceptional types. So Juteau and collaborators also study some more examples than only minimal degenerations, but the most general nilpotent-Lodovic slices are not studied yet. Okay, so this is a more classical occurrence of nilpotent-Lodovic slice. So in fact, as we see, they appear in various areas. So as I just explained, they appear in the theory of symplectic singularities. And as we have seen just before, they also appear as associated varieties of simple W algebras. And also, it turns out that they appear as Hitch branches of the 4D superconformal fields theories in another distinguished class of this kind of theory called Argyras-Douglas theory. And the last two facts are connected by the Hitch branch conjecture. The fact that they appear in these two settings are connected by this conjecture. Okay, so let me say just
all of them appear though.
Sorry? No, again, not all of them appear. No. First of all, not nilpotent-Lodovic slice appears as associated variety of simple W algebras, but not all W algebras appears in this set. Precisely, I would want to say a few words here. I'm not going to talk about this theory because myself, I don't understand very well, but what I know is that it was observed by some physicists that typically the simple W algebras that appears in this context are admissible simple W algebras with boundary level, which means that if you remember the definition of admissible level, it is minus HH plus there is a numerator, but here you take the numerator as small as possible. So the dual Coxeter number for simply Lay's case. Okay, so this is typical example of W algebras which appears in this context. And now what it may happen that two different W algebras are isomorphic. So I mean different in the sense that you start with different G, different nilpotent element, and different level. So it's a non-trivial isomorphism. And an interesting case here is when a simple W algebra is isomorphic to a simple affine vertex algebra, so necessarily with a smaller G prime. Okay, so this is a kind of degenerate W algebra. And in this case, we say that K is collapsing. It's a notion introduced by Adamovich, Katz, and collaborators. And this collapsing level can also have an interesting physical interpretation. So just to motivate this notion of collapsing level, so it may happen that two theories has different, the same theories have different realizations. And this means that the corresponding vertex algebras must be isomorphic, all right? And sometimes such isomorphism appear in this context. They correspond to different realizations of the same theory. And of course, if you have two such realizations, each branch must be isomorphic. And this means in this context that you have a nilpotent Lodovi slices isomorphic to something like a nilpotent orbit closure. Or at least you have a non-trivial isomorphism between two nilpotent Lodovi slices, which is quite remarkable. So conversely, if you know that you have a non-trivial isomorphism from two different nilpotent Lodovi slices, you can wonder whether it comes from to a non-trivial isomorphism as W algebras, or it comes from theory which have two different realizations. All right, so now I would like to give a little bit more precise definition of collapsing level, because this is one properties I want to study now. Okay, so I start with the centralizer of the SL2 triple containing F. So as I explained, on this generate an algebra isomorphic to SL2, and I take the centralizer in G of this. So it is known that this is a reductive Lie algebra. Sorry, I forgot Lie. It's reductive Lie algebra. And roughly, this reductive algebra acts on your W algebra in the sense that there is a vertex algebra morphism constructed by Kat and Wakimoto from the universal affine vertex algebra associated with G natural. Here the level is determined by F and K, but I don't give the definition, but you can compute into the universal W algebra. So there is a kind of action of this G natural. And now we say that K is collapsing if the image of the composition map, so the first map is this one, and the second is just a projection into the simple quotient, is surjective. So this means that you have this kind of isomorphism. So it is what I said before, it's when the W, simple W algebra is isomorphic to an affine simple affine vertex algebra, but just now it's a bit more precise. It's not any affine vertex algebra, it's precisely this G natural. Is it okay for the definition? Maybe the second one is easier to understand.
Does this happen often?
Not so often, not so often. No, not so often. I'm going to explain what is known about this. So an example which happens sometimes is when WKGF is just C. In fact, in the Deligne exceptional series, in the example I gave, if you take F minimal, then the W is just C. is what we also prove with Arakawa. So there are also examples even more trivial than this. So precisely what, first, before example, I want to give motivations for that. So I have already a bit explained that this happens in this algebraic Douglas theory. Maybe this I don't explain. The original motivation comes from a representation theory. So for those who know, there is a functor called the zoo functor, which is interesting for representation. So you attach to any vertex algebra a certain associated algebra. So for VKG, it's just the enveloping algebra of G. And when you have collapsing level, this gives a richer structure to the representation theory of LK natural, G natural. But this is a bit technical. But just to say that when it's collapsing level, you have a structure richer, which comes from the W algebra. So you have a new structure. Okay, but this is maybe too technical. And the original motivation for Adamovich, Katz, and collaborators was only for the case where F is minimal. And they observe that when K is collapsing, you have the simplicity of some interesting category. And this is also related to representation theory. So originally, the motivation is not physics, but it was a representation theory. Okay, so now let me say what is known about collapsing level. So first of all, there is a full classification in the case where F is minimal. So when F belongs to the minimal nilpotent orbits. So full classification means that they have a list of pairs GK where this is collapsing. And it's not so big. In fact, they also consider super algebra, but if you consider the non-super case, it's roughly the Deligne exceptional series plus few cases, but it's not so big. And there is also a full classification of pairs such that VKG mean is exactly C. So here it's really roughly the Deligne exceptional series and the level I there before. Okay, but this is for the minimal case. But now for non-minimal case, almost nothing is known. And the reason is that probably you know, but except for the minimal W algebra, the OPE or commutation relation are not known. So it's difficult to compute something. Except for a few examples, but in general, it's not known. So now the first problem is how to find candidates for K and F. So the idea is to use geometry. If K is collapsing, obviously, the corresponding associated varieties must be isomorphic. So this means that typically, if K is admissible and K natural is also admissible, typically you have a nilpotent Slodovich slice, which is isomorphic to a nilpotent orbit closure. And this is a very strong condition. This rarely happens. So the first idea is to start to first look when this kind of situation happen and try to lift this to the setting of vertex algebra. You can try like this. Is it okay so far? It's a bit. Okay. Do you have questions?
I have a question going back to the point about slices. So,
which one?
So you mentioned slices in.
So it's quite okay. Here.
Even before. I'm just wondering if there is any problem to extend it to slices in the affine Grassmannian of the same algebra.
Maybe I misunderstand the question.
So you're talking about intersections between Slodovich slices and nilpotent orbits for a given algebra, but there is a bigger set of singularities, symplectic singularities, where you have slices in affine Grassmannian. So I don't know if you're familiar with those.
I know I find Grassmannian, but I don't see the obvious connection here.
So there would be many symplectic singularities which appear as slices in the affine Riemannian.
Sorry, I don't see the connection. So maybe we can discuss later because I'm afraid that I don't have an answer because I don't understand well the question. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, another way of asking this, you mentioned the work of Braverman.
Yeah, but it was not really connected with this. Coulomb branch, yeah.
Right. So is there any, in the proofs that you're using, or Arakawa?
Here I'm not using anything like this. Here it's a more elementary remark. It's just about the associated variety. It's connected in the sense that this happens as each branch, and each branch corresponds to Coulomb branch of 4-dimensional something. So it's connected to their work, but what I'm going to say now, it's independent to this each branch. It's more classical and general fact that nilpotent Lodovi slices appear as associated variety of W algebras.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm just wondering whether you could extend this to slices in the affine Riemannian. Okay. Anyhow.
This is why I don't understand the word extended because it's not the same word. So.
What? So for A-type?
Ah, okay. No, but even this I don't understand. It's not totally duality in this sense. Okay, maybe we go back later to. Okay. Okay, so I still have 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so okay, I explained motivation, non-example. Okay, so I would like to give an illustrating example because I explained abstractly the idea, but okay, let's consider that, let's assume that G is SLN. And for SLN, it is well known, I think, that nilpotent orbits are parameterized by a partition of n, and I denote by O lambda the corresponding nilpotent orbit. And here K is admissible means that K is of this form because the dual Coxeter number is just n. So P and Q are co-prime and P is greater than n. And here, by the result of Arakawa, the associated variety for admissible K of the simple affine vertex algebra can be described, is described as follows. You take the Euclidean division of n by Q, okay? And then you take the maximal rectangular partition. So this means that your partition is Q M0 and the rest is F0. So if n is divisible by Q, you just get a rectangular partition. Is it okay? So now you pick an element in the closure. So if you are not familiar, there is a Young tableau, and you take in the degenerations of Young tableau from your partition. Okay.
Remove boxes.
Yeah, you remove boxes from the right and to below left. Huh? Okay. So there is a combinatorial way to understand what is exactly in the closure. So the Jordan block is just a line n. You just n boxes in the line. Okay, so now there is a very nice removal common rule due to Kraft-Prochézy to describe the kind of reducing this nilpotent Lodovi slice. So you associated with O lambda and F in the closure. This rule works as follows. I explain just on an example. Take n is equal to 7 and q is equal to 3. So your partition is just 3, 3, 1. And I take for f this one. So you see here I removed 2 boxes below. And the rule says that you erase common rows. So here there is just one common row, the first one. And then the statement that says the first nilpotent Lodovi slice is isomorphic to the one obtained by removing this row. Is it okay? So Kraft-Prochézy, it's a bit weaker, but it was recently improved so that what I'm saying is correct. It's really an isomorphism as varieties. And then if you do your trick so that if you do your rule so that the second partition is just a column, it corresponds to the 0 nilpotent orbits. So you get not only a nilpotent Lodovi slices, but just a nilpotent orbit closure. So in this case, you get just a nilpotent orbit closure of the partition 3, 1, 4. 3, 1, sorry, which is in SL4. Okay, so here I have an example where I have an isomorphism between non-trivial nilpotent Lodovi slice with nilpotent orbit closure. So here G natural is just, there is a center, but otherwise it's SL4. And from this, we observe that this corresponds to the associated variety, as I say, from this L K SL7. And the intersection corresponds to the intersection associated variety of some W algebras. And computing some invariants like central charge, you may wonder whether you have this kind of collapsing level, so this kind of isomorphism. And of course, this remark is not enough to prove, but using different techniques, we can prove it's indeed the case. And this is interesting because this appears in the Algebras-Douglas theory. Okay, so now I would like to state our result for SLN. I give quite exhaustive because I want to comment. So now we have more general results. So assume that G is SLN, K is admissible. I pick F. The first example is when, sorry, F is exactly in OK. So that the W algebras is least, because if you take the nilpotent orbit closure of OK and you intersect with F of OK, you just get a point, F. So this is the least case. In fact, it's even rational. So here, it's not so interesting, I explain exactly, but for some value of n, you get a special collapsing level where I just see. And for other cases where n is divisible by q, it is a least case, but you see it's isomorphic to L1 something.
Both least and rational were the same.
It's not, maybe for physicists it's the same, but it's not the same. Least, conjecturally, rational implies least, but there are examples of least vertex algebras which are not rational. And in this case, it's the same. And conjecturally, when K is admissible, it's the same. But I have some counterexample in this Deligne exceptional series if you shift, for instance. But okay, first. Okay, so this is a family of example, and now this is the example we generalized the previous illustrating example. I take for F this form, QM and NS, so that when you erase, you get 0. And then we have this isomorphism. So this is a particular example of collapsing levels. And this is a boundary admissible because you see that the numerator is exactly N and here is exactly S. And this example precisely appears in this Algebras-Douglas theory. So this gives a mathematical proof of these physical predictions. And then we have a more exotic family of examples. Okay, it's not so interesting, it's just to be exhaustive in SLN. And then we have, again, a boundary admissible level. And here we obtain this by using also the colon removal rule. All right, so let me comment this statement. So first of all, we have similar results for SPN, SON, and also exceptional cases. So again, we list examples. And what is interesting is that it's a bit stronger than, we recover Kraft-Prochézy results, but it's a bit stronger because here we get an isomorphism of Poisson varieties, not only just algebraic varieties. And also, we conjecture that this gives you the exhaustive list of admissible collapsing levels. We are not completely sure it's exhaustive because we start with Kraft-Prochézy rules, and I'm not sure whether this is the only way to have non-trivial isomorphism between nilpotent Lodovi slices, but we conjecture it is. All right, so is it okay for the statement? I don't give the statement for the cases because it's not so interesting. I just want to say a few words about the proof, because the proof has nothing to do with geometry. Geometry is there to find candidates, but of course it's not enough to prove. So for the proof, we use asymptotic behavior of characters. Because what is nice is that for quasi-least vertex algebras, we have the following result. So this is also our work. Okay, forget about technical assumption, but what is important is simple, quasi-list. So I will call you that this means the associated variety has only finitely many symplectic leaves, plus some technical assumption. Then the normalized characters has a nice asymptotic behavior. Sometimes we can even compute, but at least we have this. So Q is as before, and AV, WV, and GV are some constant. Okay, so this statement is well known in some particular cases. First of all, if your vertex algebra is rational least, and also a technical assumption, this is well known. And the key point in the proof for the rational and least case, which is close to what we use for the general case, is that the vector space, this is what I say at the beginning of the talk, but now I write, the vector space spanned by the character of the simple modules is invariant by the action of SL2Z. So using this, one can show these properties.
So GV is a super charge.
I don't know what is the name. We call this, so AV, we call this asymptotic dimension, and GV, we call this asymptotic growth. And we use the terminology of Katz and Wakimoto, so I'm not sure.
For rational CFT, it would be this.
Yeah, this, but in general, I don't know how to call it, just follow. And this we call weight, I think. I'm not sure about the terminology. It is also known for quotient of Virasoro vertex algebras. Okay, so for the universal one, I can give the explicit formula. And it was also known, that's why we borrow the terminology from Katz Wakimoto, when V is either the simple vertex algebra or it's Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction, in the case where K is principal admissive, so roughly when G is simply laced. So, of course, our motivation came from the last part for any admissible level, but we have a more general statement. So now how this is connected with collapsing level. It's connected because we have the following technical result. So let's assume that K is admissible and pick F in the closure of the associated variety. Then our statement that says that if the two characters are the same, so here we take the Drinfeld-Sokolov reduction of the simple vertex algebra, and on the right hand side, we take the simple affine vertex algebra associated with G natural. So by same asymptotic behavior, I mean that all these contents are the same. And in this case, the weight is just 0. And so what we have to check is whether the asymptotic dimension and the asymptotic growth or supercharge is the same. Then we conclude that it is collapsing. That is, we have this. So then to show that something is K is collapsing, we just compute this data. And fortunately, we have explicit formulas. So it was mostly proved by Katz and Wakimoto, but we just extended a little bit and then we compare. So this is how we proved all examples.
How do you prove this?
Sorry?
How do you prove this?
This statement is quite hard. But the key point is, first of all, the previous one. And then, yeah, this is the most technical part of the work. And after it just... Yeah, but I don't know what is most interesting. Okay, I can say some example just to see how it looks in exceptional cases. So in exceptional cases, the classification is not by partition. It's nilpotent orbits are classified by the Bala-Carter theory. So if you never heard, it will be a bit hard. But anyway, let's give an example in E6. So here I use a label. So this means I consider the nilpotent orbit associated with E6, EA3, and D4. And we have this kind of isomorphism. This is included in the work of Juteau and collaborators. So this means here the nilpotent cone of SL3, A2 is SL3. So what I can say is that the difference of the two nilpotent orbits involved is a 6, because it's a dimension of the nilpotent cone of A2. And then we have the following lifting. And first, for instance, the first one appears in the Argyras-Douglas theory. It's again boundary admissible. So here I use a non-isomorphism to get some lifting. But what is it? Okay, I give another example. Okay, but what is interesting is that sometimes using our technique computing asymptotic behaviors for exceptional cases, we can be exhaustive. We can check everything and compare. So we did something quite exhaustive in exceptional cases. Is what is interesting is that, for instance, you have this isomorphism, so whatever the meaning. And then, for instance, here we recover, I think, new isomorphism of nilpotent-Lodovi slice. I mean new in the sense that it's not contained in the work of Juteau and collaborators. I'm not totally sure it's new, maybe it's known for them, but at least it's not in the literature. So you see here that we use W algebra to find result on nilpotent-Lodovi slice. Okay, maybe I stop because after it's a bit technical. So maybe no, I don't talk about this. Okay, so maybe I should stop now.
Thank you so much. We can take questions both from the
room and from very far away. But yes.
So on your previous slide, you had
I wait for the question. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So is G something like the Virasoro central charge?
Sorry?
Is G your Virasoro central charge?
Virasoro? I think it's the same question as Boris. I'm not sure about the terminology, but we call this asymptotic growth. I think it's called effective central charge sometimes. But in fact, it's coincides with effective central charge only in some cases. I think in general, it's not the same notion, if I am correct.
I guess so.
But I heard this terminology, so we comment in some case. This one is quite, the formula is not so hard actually for GV. And sometimes indeed it coincides with so-called effective central charge, so it corresponds to some minimal weight for the representation somehow.
So Virasoro is always a sub-algebra or algebra?
Yes, because as I explained at the beginning, I consider VOA, and so there is an action of Virasoro, and we strongly use this to prove this.
That's your CFP.
Yeah. From the beginning, I talk about VOA, so you have an action of Virasoro. For most of things I explained about associated variety and so on, you don't need, but here you need.
Yeah.
There's an issue of power supply.
Sorry?
Your computer is dying from power. But, okay.
Dying from power. Oh, yeah.
Not COVID.
So it's time to finish. Yeah, do you other questions? Otherwise, I can just plug.
Yes, please do.
Just take a minute to plug in the computer.
Non, ça va aller. Okay, so is there other question?
I was wondering if this equivalent, so because G is something like a central charge, or at least that's the equation I have, which is probably wrong. But either way, on the next slide, you say you have this equivalent of
It's not really equivalence.
No, yeah, but you have this demand that the G is
This and this.
Yeah.
In fact, we.
Let me make a concrete question, which is whether you need that both A and G agree.
Yeah.
Can you not just demand agreement?
That's really interesting. It is a slide that I haven't shown. Sometimes you have the same asymptotic growth for what I call a G, but A is double. So in this case, what we expect sometimes, and we do obtain, is a finite extension. It's not isomorphic, but you get finite extension. And this is also interesting because we observe that sometimes the associated variety is not the same, but it is birationally equivalent. So this is precisely the slide I avoid because it was even more complicated. But typically it's when A is 2. So far we have only 2, but it can be 3, I don't know. But we don't claim that if A is double, it's always a finite extension. We prove by hand if it is so.
Any other questions? I guess we had many questions.
Maybe one.
Please.
Yeah.
Maybe one. So yeah, in all the case you have, for now, you could conjecture that the geometry is enough to characterize the isomorphism?
No, far from being enough. We have many examples where we start with isomorphism between nilpotent Lodovi slice and we don't find liftings. What we do, we start with a geometry and we check all possible liftings. Usually computing central charge gives you strong restriction. And then if central charge match, we try to show it's indeed a lift.
But there are many counterexamples where the
geometry... yeah, there are many. Most of time we don't have a collapsing level, unfortunately, but starting with some non-trivial isomorphism, we try to compute all. That's why we conjecture it's exhaustive, but because we don't have the exhaustive list of non-trivial example isomorphism from collapsing level, we are not sure, but the idea is to start with geometry, at least for classical cases, because for exceptional cases, because there are finitely many cases, we finally checked everything. So.
Does it help if you take into account this non-reduciveness?
What do you mean?
Can you distinguish more easily?
Yeah, sometimes, I don't know if non-reducedness not so useful, but you mean if we consider in more detail the geometry?
Right.
Yeah, it's rather opposite, is that for instance for this story of what I'm saying about finite extension, sometimes we observe that it's not isomorphic, and to see that we use really the Hasse diagram and we use real singularities to compare, to show they are not isomorphic. But at the beginning, we do something more, how to say, rough.
So I have one question. There's a natural quantization of the Higgs branch on the physics side. Is there a natural quantum deformation of these W algebras?
Quantum, there are some quantum deformation, but I have no idea of the meaning in terms of what I'm talking today. You do quantum deformation of W algebras. Your question is whether it's connected to the quantum Higgs branch?
Yeah, so they would have some kind of associative variety, which would be quantum deformation of the one that you talked about.
Yeah, but this I never really worked on this. Yeah.
Any other question? Okay, so before we thank Anne again, let me point out that we'll upload the slides on the website if you want to check out the references and if Anne agrees.
Yeah.
And so if now further ado, let's thank again Anne for the very beautiful talk.
How to stop the recording? I will correct the typo then. I can stop sharing?
Yes, please.